Today on the Relationship Revival Show, I'm joined by Kimberley Healey. Kimberley is an Ivy League PhD in French literature turned sex, love, and intimacy coach for people who find it perplexing to be accomplished and yet at a loss in their love life. As an experienced teacher of yoga and literature, she combines a deep understanding of the body and the mind to help people reconnect with their hearts. You're listening to the Relationship Revival Podcast with John DeBach, also known as Mr. Spirituality. That's me. I'm your host, giving you insights and guidance from over 10 years in the field of this amazing journey we call romance. On this show, I go over everything you need to know about how to get into a relationship, how to get the most out of a relationship, and sometimes even how to gracefully end a relationship without pulling your hair out and going crazy. And occasionally, I'm even joined by new and old friends who are also relationship experts to bring you guidance and wisdom with new perspectives. Thanks for stopping by. Kimberley Healey, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you. It's wonderful to be here, John, and nice to meet you.
Yeah, nice to meet you too. I love your background. So you have a PhD in French literature and you're a dating coach. And that's, there's so much time that we spend on the podcast talking to people about how to be in a relationship. How, like, what do you do when you're 15 years into the marriage and love evaporates? But, one thing that's really interesting for me is I got married right before the apps came out, like literally right before. And I saw it happen in my first year or two of marriage where it just exploded. I mean, there was still like the online websites like eHarmony and JDate and stuff. And I was on those for a bit when I was, in my early 20s and whatnot, but I cannot even think about what it's like to navigate that landscape. And that's kind of the sandbox you play in the most. So, and there's a lot of people who are coming out of marriages who listen to the podcast or who haven't been in that dating pool for a long time. And it's obviously like something everybody's going through. There's even a show, I think on Hulu, with Jesse Eisenberg. What's it called? Something like Schmidt, something's wrong with, where
I tried to
he's a doctor.
Yes, I know what you're talking about.
And he's
something. Yes. What's wrong with it?
Yeah. What's wrong with Schmidt? Something like that.
Yes.
Yeah. And I didn't get to watch the whole thing, but it just reminded me of like how radically different things are now. So tell me about first of all, I want to get into your background too, but what do you do with people and who are the types of people who come and find you?
Yeah. So I mostly work with creatives, filmmakers, photographers, chefs, actors, musicians, people who are incredibly good at dreaming things up and not so good at dreaming up the love life that they want, stepping back into that reality. The apps are intimidating and wild, and it's an $82 billion business worldwide.
Owned by like 3 companies too, by the way.
Right. And there are fewer people in relationships since the apps have exploded than before. The apps have exploded. Almost half of Americans aren't in serious relationships, adult Americans, right?
Uh-huh. Have you ever looked at the stats in Asia?
Not in Asia, but in Europe.
So in Asia, because they've had it longer than us, right? The social media, the average sexual partner and the average age of marriage has dropped off a cliff in Asia. And I was like in shock. It's crazy. It's absolutely nuts. So you're preaching to the choir for sure.
Right. They're not invested in people coupling up and getting off the apps. Like, it would be ludicrous to think that. Just like,
right.
HelloFresh is not invested in you learning how to actually cook.
Maybe cook, but not shop, right?
Really not need them, right?
Right.
And so what I have found is that people, what's sad for me is that people have kind of, especially during the pandemic, because there seemed to be no other option, right? How in the world are you going to meet anyone? People have kind of outsourced all the effort of connecting and meeting people to the apps, kind of like we outsource maybe our house cleaning to a house cleaner, right? We outsource all of these things. And what happens is then when they're in day-to-day life and they could meet people, they're like, no, I have an app for that. It's become compartmentalized. Mm-hmm. It's hard for people to make eye contact, to have a casual conversation. It's really hard for people, adults, especially accomplished adults, to come out and say, I'm looking for love. I'm lonely. I really want a lifelong partner. I work with some of my clients to just get them to say those words, and they tear up, and they don't want to look at me, and they don't want to say it. But when they do say it, like, your heart goes out to them. You're like, I'm going to find someone for you. I'm going to help you. So I feel like as the pandemic ends, we're really at this crucial moment where we can turn towards people, or we can turn towards technology. And there are more and more apps. Every day there's a new one that has a special thing. But ultimately, what we want is to connect with people. People are very, very lonely. So what I do in my work is I help adults kind of align what their mind is thinking about how they want a relationship, which sometimes is a little outdated because it's something, they're stuck on from even like middle school, right? I just want to be adored. I want to feel safe. Right? Well, that's good. And then what their body is saying about how they want to be in connection and community with people. So I help people with visualization, with breath work, to align those two. Because if I said to you, John, you're going to go jump off this cliff. You just used the word. You're going to go jump off this cliff, right? And just go do it. You can do it. You can do it. Go, go, go. And you got to the edge of the cliff, and you'd be like, But if I took some time with you and I was like, drop into your body, like, hear the ocean. Feel the rocks under your feet. Is this the cliff that you want? Right? Is this where you want to go? And so when people really drop into their physical sensations and their heart's desires, they get so much more clarity about the kind of connection they're looking for, which is very different from all the stories in our heads. And
so that's kind of like the first step for you, is really getting them in tune with what they really want.
Absolutely. And that is hard for people.
And I've had lunch with friends of mine in their 50s who have been divorced or just got divorced. Or one of my favorites is someone who got divorced when they were in their 30s and then got into like a 10-year relationship 4 months later. And now they're finally like single. And now they're like, I'm not sure. And it's like they're in their 50s and they never ask themselves. And it's fascinating to see them kind of trip over the same mistakes that other people did in their 20s because they weren't married or something. So you're right. It's one of those things where, like, you don't just intuit it. You kind of have to learn that skill set.
Right. And who are our role models? A dating coach, that's a made up thing, but it's necessary. Your grandmother can't help you.
Yeah.
You're married for 30 years, friends don't know what to tell you. They love you. They see you in pain. They don't know how to help you. We have no role models. We haven't lived this long as a species with the ability to choose new mates past childbearing age or past, sort of the very basics. In the 1800s, people in the US died in their 40s. So we don't know what we're doing. And yet it's such an opportunity for people to write a new story. Like, your friend can have whatever they want if they can figure out what it is they want.
So let's say you get them to the point where they know what they want. And I know that's a process. What's the step after that? And is that where your work ends, or do you continue working with them?
Well, it depends on the person. Sometimes people get there quickly, and sometimes it takes them a long time. Especially, I would say, women who have been brought up to adapt to others and to please others. They're really not in the habit of saying, I want this and I want it now.
Sure.
That's a lot of internal work that we go through. So the next thing is, in what daily practices are going to get you closer to what you want? Is it going to be a strategy for working with the apps, which is good, fine. But also, I always encourage people to have a strategy for what their in real life is going to be looking like at the time. A lot of people are a little bit out of whack, out of balance with, they're really easy. It's really easy for them to connect with people, but they don't let others connect with them, let's say. Right. So the next step is, like, you're meeting people, you're going out, you're meeting people. Are you too easily going to the yes without really thinking about who you are? Or are you too quickly going to the no because all the fears come up, right? So I have to do a lot of hand holding through the initial texting and dating stages so that people can stay grounded, not get into all of their fears around rejection, and stick with the desire that they've come up with. So I really ask people to hone in on one or two desires, and then we just like keep going back to those. They can change, but you can't have 10 desires in a coherent dating life. It just won't work.
Yeah.
So how are you going to meet? Who are you going to meet? Where are you going to meet? What kind of time do you want to spend with people? Where do you draw lines? To be very heterosexual and cisgender about it, I see that women are drawing lines really, really fast because they've had bad experiences, and men who are new to the dating world are saying, "I'll go out with anyone who'll go out with me. Please, I'm lonely. She's nice. I'll go out with her." And I'm like, wait, she's nice, but does she want a long-term relationship? Do you have anything in common? So it's almost, and I do blame the dating apps, and there's statistics on this to like that men don't get a lot of matches on the apps, and so they'll match with anybody, and women get matches who aren't the right matches, and it just sort of goes and goes. So I really help people then like take a deep breath, be patient, don't leap to assumptions, check in with yourself, and go on a date or two or three. It's culturally okay in the US to like make fun of people who are dating and to trash talk the man you met on Bumble or the women on Tinder and their filter. What I try to do is like, what is the humanity in every single connection, and what can you learn, and how can you take what you learned to feel better about humans, to feel better about connections. It's not like, oh, he's bad and she's bad. I really feel like a little, I don't know, that's my soapbox. Everyone deserves love, and everyone is worth spending, a short date with.
Yeah. I mean, it's someone who does counseling and therapy sessions. That's the first thing we do is we find be empathetic. If you can't love your client, then you can't help them. So I totally get that. And it's hard sometimes, because some people have some storied histories when they come into and they sit on the couch. Yeah, no, not, you'd be surprised. Most people are harder on themselves than we would be, but there is that occasional where you're like, you should be a little harder on yourself, and you still have to find a way to love those people. So I get that. You said something interesting. You said a strategy to work with the apps, and again, me never having to use one. I mean, I think I downloaded one with my wife as a joke to kind of like see what it was like, because neither of us, and then we deleted it that same night. But that's so fascinating to think of it as a strategy. What can you kind of explain one of many strategies that you might kind of pitch? Because I'm just fascinated what that looks like.
Oh yeah, I have a lot of strategies. So, there are strategies about your profile, your pictures, and what you're going to do. There's strategies about limiting yourself to a number of apps. But the real strategy is similar to what I was just talking about, that not to lean on the apps as proof that things are as bad as you think they are. So please, please, please don't swipe when you're insomniac. Don't swipe when you're feeling lonely. I tell my clients you get 10 a day. You can swipe on 10 people a day, and then you put it away. You turn off all notifications. You have it only on one device. It's a little thing that you do, like drinking your coffee in the morning, swipe, 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 done for the day, and move on. So that's not like buzzing in your pocket as you go through the day. It's not, because it really quickly turns into a self-worth validation, except it's the opposite, right? It's like, nobody loves me. All men are terrible. All women are terrible. And so the strategy is to really limit it and to not go for it when that gaping wound is starting to open of like, oh, I just want someone to reaffirm that I'm unlovable, right?
Gotcha. Interesting. Well, what's your own story like? I know you did some dating in France during the pandemic, which is a mouthful. I think Louis C.K. escaped there during the pandemic as well.
I didn't see him.
I know he went somewhere in Europe. I don't know where, but he was just like, I'm out of here. What was your experience like?
Yeah, it's pretty funny. So I had my heart broken really badly in March 2019. That's a separate story. I thought I would be with this person the rest of my life, and I'm not. So I was moving to France anyhow. I spent a lot of time in France. In the summer of 2019, I moved to France. for a year off, sabbatical, do what I want. And March 13th, 2020, I was like, okay, it's been a year. Stop moping. You need to date. Cosmic joke, right? Because March 14th, 2020, France is in total lockdown. The end. The end. I went on one little tiny date before the lockdown in a park. And so I set myself the challenge of meeting 10 people while I was in France, because I was like, I need to get better at this. I need to figure it out. Like our conversation before we started, like, I didn't know what I was doing.
Right.
I didn't know how the apps worked. I'm totally fluent in French, so I didn't have a linguistic problem, but there are cultural differences. And I didn't know what I wanted. What did I want? I don't know. Love, food, like someone else to cook, because we couldn't go to any restaurants. Sex, probably, loneliness, physical loneliness.
I hope so. Not probably. Gosh.
Well, right, except there are all these rules. You couldn't go more than 1 kilometer from your house. The police would stop you, right? So it's like,
different kind of lockdown.
super, yeah. So I remember like the first time I like broke the rules to go to someone's house, I was like, oh my gosh, I have to have, a shopping bag so I look like I'm shopping. And so since then I've met 44 men, because I'm heterosexual, through online dating. And, because of my work, I'm happy to meet people just to like be their practice date or hang out. I meet a lot of people who it's the very first time they've met someone since their marriage or their life has changed. And so it's a little bit research, and I'm always open and say, well, that's not true. If I'm not that interested in them, I'm open and say, like, I'm a dating coach. I'm happy to, chat with you, but this is my work. If I am interested in them, I usually just show up as myself and not my work self.
Sure.
And I will say 44 men. So I want any women listening to this, I want you to know I have had no bad experiences.
Oh, wow.
I have had no bad experiences. People are people.
All in France or
11 in France, and then I came back to the US in 2020. The lockdown was too much for me.
Okay, so 44 over 3 years, it sounds like.
44 over 3 years, yeah. Is that right? 44, 43? I try to write it down because I can't keep track.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons I did it is because I feel like I wanted to learn more about what's going on with men. And the things I've heard are a little heartbreaking. Men are very lonely. They don't have the perceived community that women seem to easily make. They don't know what they're supposed to do culturally right now. Like, if they make a move, they're an aggressor. If they don't make a move, they're wimpy. It's like the gender norms are so black and white, and there's no space to do the right thing. It's really hard. So I have a lot of empathy. Some of my clients are men too, and I work with them going out dating too.
The gender norm thing, I feel personally will go away over time. The social thing will not. That's been time immemorial. So men, I don't know if anybody's pointed this out to you, but in a heterosexual or heteronormative relationship, it's very rare that the man will have any kind of social circle. That job is put on the wife.
Right.
And so it's like, to me, it's like, yeah, I get it. I mean, I have some friends who are single in their 30s through 50s. And if they don't go to the happy hour, they're home and that's it. And like, that's all they do. We're just kind of clueless that way.
Yeah. So a lot of my work for men and women or whoever I'm working with is about building connections, whether or not they be romantic. So I've given talks on this. Like the skills that I'm teaching are useful for making friendships as well. And we should all be practicing these skills on our friends because it'll make us better friends.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. So wait,
what are some of the best dates that you've been on though?
Oh, the best dates I've been on. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
I mean, I hate to cut you off, but I was like, out of 44, I want to hear some of them.
Best dates I've been on. I met a guy. We went bow hunting in the woods with a fake deer. I didn't kill anything.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
See, I'm taking mental notes for like my wife because dinner and a movie gets old.
Oh yeah, no archery. Another guy, I was like, I'm so tired of boring dates. He's like, well, do you want to get your motorcycle license? And he signed us up for a motorcycle clinic, and I got my motorcycle license.
Is that a one-day thing?
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, I did a little practicing first, but yeah.
Wow, that's cool.
5 hours. It was really fun. It was really fun. I still can't really ride a motorcycle, but I did it.
Yeah.
Other fantastic dates have been like a 9-mile hike in the woods in the dark. I like
That
the
sounds
active dates.
scary. You better trust the person.
Yeah. Well, so it started out as a short one, and then I started to feel very confident about
I
this.
probably wouldn't put that as your profile. Would you like to go on a 9-mile dark walk in the woods with me?
Yeah. I mean, recently someone took me to a comedy club. I never go to those. That was great.
Yeah.
You know,
For me, it's a standard date. I love comedy, but
oh,
yeah,
awesome.
I hear you.
Yeah. So, and then I would say that some weekend trips, you know, I'm game. I'll try it. It's fine. I'll go anywhere. I think the worst dates are going out for a drink. Like that's, you're sitting still. There's a lot of ambient noise.
Mm-hmm.
Drink alcohol. Are they drinking too much alcohol? Are you not drinking enough alcohol? Like all these judgments.
Right. Do you recommend to people not to do the drink as a first date just to like see, because it's low commitment, right? Because you can end a drink in an hour. So I get why people do that. And it's also low cost for the men, because if they're going out with a million women, it's like, this is expensive. So
I have a strategy. I tell everyone to plan a 35-minute first date.
Okay.
To have something at the end, like, oh, I have to run. I have a Zoom call, or I have to go meet a friend. Something that you could change if you were having a good time, but that when you arrive, you tell the person, I've got 35 minutes. I'm sorry. You know, it's a relief to both parties. Everyone's like, oh, okay, I'll have to make it through 35 minutes. Like this is, there's a hard stop.
You can hang on by your fingernails. For
you can make it. Right? You'll be okay. Yeah. And at the end of that 35 minutes, I mean, you know, if it's amazing, but it's also like in France, there's this expression, rester sur sa faim, to stay a little hungry is good. Mm-hmm. Marriages too, staying a little hungry, like, we don't get it all right now. So then you want to make another opportunity to meet them or not. And so what I want my clients to do is to do something they would normally do that brings them joy or pleasure. So if I would normally just love to take a walk in the park, then I want to go on a date that's in the park. If someone else loves beautiful cocktails, go have a beautiful cocktail. So that your whole nervous system is looking forward to some aspect of this encounter with a new person.
That sounds great. Yeah, I like that. That's good. You definitely don't want to do something. If you're not the motorcycle type, you don't want to make that a date. Like, I heard this was a good date, even though I'm terrified of motorcycles. That wouldn't be good. I have a funny first date story that I haven't thought of since because it happened when I was like 19, 20. But so it was a blind date. Someone set me up with this girl who was Israeli. She was beautiful, but her name was Moran. But she, with the English accent, it sounds just like moron. And so we went to get a coffee at a Starbucks, and I'm like, well, what's your order? And I grabbed it from her. I was like, I'll wait in line, because there was a line, you know, you want to go sit in one of the couches. And I forgot the order. And so I yelled across the Starbucks, hey, moron, what did you want and the woman behind me in line chewed me out. She was like, how dare you? How dare you? And she's like, don't you realize how far women have come? I'm like, lady, that's her name. And she's like, that is not her name. She has a name. What is your name? And the woman and my date said, I'm Moron. And she went, no, what is your, she thought she was being abused. And I said, no, it's Moran with an A. She's Israeli. And the woman bought us our drinks. So it had a happy ending. She was so embarrassed. But I was like, yeah, how do you think I feel? It's you know, it's a blind date. I had to text someone, hey, Moron, where do you want to meet? You know, so it didn't work out, but for other reasons. But I was like, I'll never forget it. And except I haven't brought it up in 10 years. So it's kind of funny. Yeah. So you never know. Like sometimes I tell my married couples, it's better to go out on a bad date than no date at all, because you guys can laugh about it later.
But I'm going to one up you on that one, John. Mm-hmm. Seriously. This whole Disneyland, Disney fairy tale princess, meet at first sight, blah. If you think about the best relationships that you know that have really lasted a long time and are fabulous, almost every single one of them started with a no.
Yeah.
It was a bad first date. One of them wasn't single. They didn't really like each other.
Right.
The ones that start with a yes fizzle out. Like, so
Mhm.
having a bad date is good in a way. Like if, like you said, it can be the story, but also it's human and normal. Like it shouldn't be a rom-com.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny when people ask how my wife and I date. It's not my line, but I tell people because it's like our story's kind of boring. So I'll tell people we met in the return line at the 99-cent store, just to kind of break things up. But you're right. Like I think she said yes, and she said yes emphatically, but in her head it was a no because
Uh-huh.
I'm a little younger than her, and so she was like, I don't know. But she was at that place in her life. She's like, just try it, and that just try it turned into we're getting married.
Yep.
So yeah, I think that's really great advice.
And
Well,
it takes time. You need,
what's that?
and it takes time. You need time to get to know someone.
Yeah. Yeah. Everybody has their own threshold of warming up for sure.
Mhm.
I have 4 kids. They're all different.
Mhm.
They all have their own, and it depends on the day too. So for sure. What's the best way for someone to reach out? It sounds like you'd be a great fit for so many.
Yeah.
Is it just through your website, KimberleyHealey.com?
My website is great, KimberleyHealey.com. You can book a free half hour and we can see if we're a match for this work. I'm also on Instagram at Healey Delight, Healey. And I also post, I do free talks and I post them like every month on YouTube. I've given talks on dating and spirituality, what to do when you're ghosted, dating as a cultural outsider. Like that wasn't our topic today, but like dating as an immigrant, that's really a thing here in the Bay Area where people,
Oh, wow.
yeah, if you
Yeah,
have,
that's super interesting. Yeah.
yeah, as an outsider, culturally or your age or your ability. So I give a lot of free talks on things that I think are interesting around dating, and people are welcome to come to those. They're on Eventbrite, OS listed, but probably the most direct way would be through my website or follow me on Instagram. And
Awesome. I'll be sure to post everything in the show notes as
yeah,
well and on the website listing, but KimberleyHealey.com spelled just the way you think it is. So yeah, definitely sounds like a shoo-in for a lot of people, especially if they're in that place. Thank you so much for being on the program.
you're welcome. It was so nice to meet you.
If you're interested in learning how to get the absolute most out of your romantic relationships, then you're in luck because I have put together a free workshop or masterclass, if you will, about 3 secrets that people in happy relationships have discovered. You can view the workshop at mrspirituality.com/3 secrets. Again, it's completely free. Just go there and watch it. It'll help you on your journey, give you some wisdom, some things to think about. The website again is mrspirituality.com/3 secrets. That's mrspirituality.com/3, the word secrets. It's all yours. Enjoy.